Hello everyone! In this lesson we're going to learn how to actually deploy our Laravel application up onto the web so that it's live and the whole world can visit it. Now yes, we practiced that a little bit in our previous couple of lessons, but in this video I'm actually going to sign up for a real VPS plan. Now, I'm not officially endorsing any of these companies, but I would say the big three are DigitalOcean, Linode, and Vultr. It's just my own personal preference. I've just had good luck with Linode, so that's the one that I'm going to use. But you're completely free to use any of them. Having said that, if you want to be able to easily follow along with me, then, I'm not endorsing Linode, but it would make sense that you could follow along with me if you wanted to. Again, there's no pressure. I'm just going to sign up for a $5 a month plan. Again, just to be clear, I don't want you to feel any pressure whatsoever. You do not need to do this at all. This is just if you're really ready to push a Laravel app up onto the web and you'd like to practice deploying it with me step by step. If you're not ready to actually go live, there's no sense in spending the $5 a month if you don't want to. So zero pressure, right? The couple of lessons that we just worked through with Docker, those are great for practice as well. Anyways, in this window, I've already logged into my Linode account. So when you first get started, you need to put a credit card on file in order to sign up for Linode, but they're not actually going to bill you until you start creating, virtual machines or VPSs, or they call them Linodes. Anyways, from this main screen in Linode, I just want to create a new computer, like a new virtual machine. So from the Linode screen, I'm going to click Create, and it's called a Linode. So I want to create a new Linode. For my distribution, I'm going to choose the newest Ubuntu long-term support. So if I scroll down to Ubuntu, I want this one, 2204 LTS. I'm not saying it's the best Linux distribution. All I'm saying is Ubuntu is the one that I have the most personal experience with. So that's what I'm going to choose. For region, I would choose personally something on like the west side of the United States. So maybe California. It's totally up to you which one you pick. Now, for the Linode plan, this is important. I want to choose the affordable option that's only $5 a month. So in other words, I don't want any of these dedicated CPU options. You can see the most affordable one starts at $30 a month and just increases in price pretty quickly from there. So instead, what I'm going to do is click this shared CPU option. Okay, and then I just want this first most basic affordable plan. You can see it's $5 a month to create this virtual machine. So that's what I'm okay with. I'm going to click this one. Cool. And now we can scroll down. For the label, you can leave the default label, or, I might say like Laravel Ubuntu. Okay, now scroll down. This part is very important. You want to choose a secure root password. I can't tell you what to enter here. You need to make up your own long, secure password. Okay, after that, then we see SSH keys. Now, SSH keys are very useful. I strongly recommend that you use them. However, to just get started, I want to keep things as simple as possible. So I'm actually going to skip SSH keys, and we can revisit this topic a bit later on. But for now, we can go ahead and skip that. We do not need to attach a VLAN. We can keep scrolling. We don't need any add-ons. We don't need anything extra. Cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Create Linode. Okay, so now you can see Linode is telling us the machine is provisioning, so it's not ready for us to connect to yet, but I would imagine in just a couple of minutes it will be ready. Now, this screen shows us all sorts of information, so your IP address will be different, but this is my IP address for my VPS, right? So this is a dedicated IP address for only my VPS. In other words, I haven't attached like my own .com domain to this system yet, so this is how you would visit it like in your web browser. You would just actually visit the IP address. Don't worry, I will add a domain to my site a little bit later on, but for now this is an okay way to start. Anyways, right now what we want to do is SSH or log into this machine so that we can get into its command line and actually start doing something useful. So you can see right here, there's SSH access, and that's going to give you a command, but it's not rocket science. It's just literally SSH root at, and then your IP address. So yours is going to be different than mine, but let's go connect. So you can open up a terminal on your computer, whether you want to use VS Code and just, jump into the command line, That would work. Or I recommend just opening like a system-wide terminal like this. Doesn't matter either way though. But what we're going to do is say SSH, and then our user account is named root at symbol. And now this is where you would type something in different than me, but you're just going to type in your IP address. So again, yours will be different, but this one makes sense for me. So just paste that in, right? So it's SSH root at your IP address. Go ahead and press enter. You should only see this message the very first time you connect, but essentially, yes, we do want to trust it or give it permission. So I would just type in yes and then hit enter. Cool. And now you need to enter that password you chose just a couple of minutes ago, right? Your root password that you made up in the Linode dashboard. So type that in and then go ahead and press enter, and you are logged in now. For our first bit of business, let's install Nginx, just because I want to be able to visit my IP address in my web browser. Right now, currently, if I try to visit it, I see this site can't be reached, and that's because this is a brand new, fresh computer. It's not listening for incoming requests. It's not a web server by default, so we're going to turn it into a web server, right? We want to begin listening on port 80. Now, don't worry. Eventually, we'll set up HTTPS encryption, and then we would also want to listen on port 443. We can cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyways, I'm going to run clear, so we're back up at the top of the screen, and let's install Nginx. So I would just say sudo apt update. This is the first difference from our Docker practice. So in Docker containers, you don't need to run sudo. I know some people pronounce it sudo, but I think the correct term is actually sudo, because you're saying that you're like a super user and you want to do the following. But anyways, that's besides the point. Anyways, Docker containers do not have sudo, but in an environment like this, we do want to use that. So it's just going to give us correct permissions. Let's go ahead and press enter. That's going to go out and update sort of the list of packages that we can pull from. It's not actually going to install anything. It should take just a minute. Cool. Let me run clear just so we're back up at the top. And now let's actually install Nginx. So it would just be sudo apt install Nginx. Go ahead and press enter. When it gives you a choice, type Y for yes and then press enter. And this should be a very quick download. What's cool is this is not using the internet speed of your connection. This is using the speed of Linode's internet connection. So it should be fairly quick. And now back in your browser, if you try to visit your IP address, you refresh, awesome, we see welcome to Nginx. Now that's really all I wanted to do in this lesson. I just wanted to get our web server up and running so that you can visit it from your browser. However, before we bring this lesson to a close, I want to show you something. So back in your command line, if you run the command of exit, that's going to close your SSH connection. And now in this command line, you're no longer connected to your VPS. Now you're just back on your host computer. But what's cool is the whole point of a web server is it's going to stay up online 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So now you can refresh, your web server is still up and running. However, I want to let you know something about Linode and most cloud VPS providers. And that is, if you go back to your dashboard in Linode and click on Linodes, you can turn your server off. Now, normally you wouldn't turn a server off, right? The whole point of a server is that you leave it turned on 24/7, 365. But I just want to let you know that if you turn your server off, you're still going to be billed. Let me give you an example. So from Linode, if I click on these three dots and click power off, and click, yep, power off, and just give it a minute to shut down. It shouldn't take too long. Okay, cool. So now you can see it powered off. It's offline. So obviously now I can't actually visit it. I can't visit that IP address. I cannot visit the server. You can see it's just going to spin and load forever. It eventually will time out. But the server's offline. But what I'm trying to let you know is that you're still going to get billed that $5 a month, right? Because this is still taking up hard drive space and resources for Linode. Because at any moment you could click these dots and click to power it back on. So if you want to avoid the cost that this virtual machine would be accruing for you, you're going to need to actually delete it. Now, I'm not telling you to delete it right now, but what I'm saying is like, if you decided, hey, I don't want to practice anymore, I don't want to spend the $5 a month, I only want to spend like the 5 cents or like the 9 pennies that it cost me to run this for a day, or not a day, but like an hour or two or whatever, you could click on these three dots and then actually click the delete option down here. Now, once you delete a VPS, yes, you're not going to continue to get billed for it. But I just wanted to make that abundantly clear because I would hate for someone to create 20 test machines and then never delete them and then rack up a huge bill. So just be very careful of that. Be very mindful when you create a new Linode. Until you actually delete it, it's going to be adding to your bill. But in my case, I just chose the basic box that's only $5 a month, so I don't need to worry about deleting this. At the very max, it's just going to bill me $5 a month unless I started getting huge amounts of traffic and overcharges. Anyways, you could go ahead and bring it back up online. So you just click these three dots, click power on, click the confirm power on, and it should only take maybe, I would guess, 25 seconds, and it'll be back up online. So you can see it says booting. Cool, we're already up and running, and now if I refresh, I can indeed visit this IP address in my web browser. Well, you can see it might take a couple of seconds for the system to be initialized and start up the Nginx service, but if I refresh, cool. It actually took a good 15 to 20 seconds, but eventually we're back in business. Now, just for practice, back in your terminal, you are free to say, SSH root at your IP address. Press enter. It's going to ask you for your password. As soon as you enter that, boom, you're connected once again. So you could run HTOP just for fun. You can see, my server, it has 1 gig of RAM. Right now I'm only using 138 megabytes. These are the different processes that are going on. Cool. You can press Control-C to get out of that. And then again, when you're ready to exit your SSH connection, you just type exit. And now you're back on your host machine. Cool. That's all I had planned for this specific lesson. In our next lesson, I want to show you how you could add a real domain, right? Like a .com or a .xyz, so on and so forth, instead of having to visit your site from an IP address. So I'll show you how I would set that up in the next lesson. Let's keep our momentum rolling, and I will see you then.